Why are you saying that?
Sorry, that gives you something else to work with in the beginning.
In this video, we're going to talk about the 7 reasons why we moved to Portugal.
So, in case you don't know, our channel's all about expat life in Portugal. So diving in at number 1 is safety. This is particularly important for us, especially because we've got 2 young children, age 6 and age 2.5. So when we lived in London, the crime was escalating, especially when we found out about Brexit, and every day the news got more and more terrifying. So it was a really important factor for us when we were looking for the best country for us to relocate safely with our family.
And as a great surprise, we found out that Portugal was on top 3 in the world's peace index, only topped by countries like New Zealand and Iceland, which makes it the safest country in Southern Europe that we could relocate to.
This gives us peace of mind for having our young children grow up here. Really, really important for us.
At number 2, we have quality of life.
Just for context, our life in London was seriously crazy. It was easy that we ended up commuting for over 2 hours a day, working 14-hour days, and I ended up feeling a bit like a weekend mum. It wasn't much fun, was it?
What we essentially made our calculations for was that if we spend 1 hour each way to and from work for just, let's say, 20 working days in a month, we would essentially spend 40 hours in a month, so the equivalent of a whole work week just in commuting. So what we found in London is that quality of life isn't very high as a family.
We went about setting ourselves up so we could work full-time online, which would enable us to spend quality time with our children and relocate to Portugal.
So even prior to COVID-19, we already had focus on making sure that we could work and function with a remote lifestyle. This is only now more possible for many of you, when we have such a change in the work environment and more people are able to work remotely.
I mean, it's undeniable the amazing quality of life that exists here in Portugal. Firstly, over 300 days of sunshine a year, which is amazing. And I mean, let's face it, I need the vitamin D, okay?
And even if you look at the boring facts about sun hours, because what really matters to us humans is about the amount of hours of sun that we are able to get on our skin. And there's more than double now the sun hours over the course of a year compared to countries like the UK.
And we were really taken. I mean, we've been here on holiday many times and we've always been taken by the culture and the history, such rich architecture and nice beaches. And I mean, you know, the people are incredible, warm and friendly and welcoming, which brings us on to another point about how welcome we felt since we've moved here.
Absolutely. Well, Portugal have a very unique culture where they really welcoming everybody that comes to the country, we find, and everybody, regardless of how much help we've been needing in the beginning, have always been with arms open, trying to help us through the processes, and that is really amazing to see in a country that is the second youngest democracy in Europe. So they already have great speed of development compared to so many other countries where it easily can go a bit stale in the amount of what we call it, welcoming to foreigners.
Yeah, absolutely. And an essential thing for us was that we found somewhere which was a country that was great to bring up a family, a young family. As we've mentioned, we've got 2 young children, and one of the factors for us is having great schools, and we really do enjoy the approach to education here, which is very child-centered, isn't it?
You find in Portugal that it's a very different attitude towards raising kids, we had an example where we work remotely, so we have our kids, we have our own little office where we go to every day, and we brought our kids there, for example, and our kids are very welcome even in a co-working space with many other working people. It's just a very natural love for the younger generation, that they are very in the know about that you have to keep investing in the next generation.
Absolutely. And with schools, what we found is that when we take our children to school and nursery or kindergarten, it feels like we are leaving them with a family member. So it very much feels like a co-parenting arrangement, which is so lovely. And staff are so genuinely authentic and passionate about what they do. They really do love children, and the most important thing for them is that our children are happy, and what more could we ask for?
Absolutely. So what we've done is we've chosen a Portuguese private school for our kids, and what we are finding there is that it doesn't just stop at literacy. They look at the child as the whole human of all their different needs and their development as such, and have a greater understanding of their different needs, also emotionally.
What we found is that there's an excellent range of schools here in Portugal. You find international schools that offer the British curriculum, IB programme and bilingual curriculums. You also find public schools which are free to residents, and Portuguese private schools. And we landed on, we did our due diligence prior to arriving here, and we also despite COVID, we managed to set up a few remote video calls with schools. They were very accommodating given the situation. But we opted for a Portuguese private school, and that was because we discussed it with our son, our eldest, who's 6. And it was his choice, wasn't it, really, to go to a Portuguese school rather than a British school?
Yeah, it was very natural. So he had the choice of both, and we literally went to the school, and he bought into the people, the way they received him, the way they showed him around in the school. Even through the COVID restrictions, they managed to be very creative and very welcoming, very warm.
Yeah. So, well done, Portugal. Given our young family, the next thing that's important to us is healthcare.
What we have looked into is that the quality of healthcare compared to other countries, and what we found out there is in the what is it called, the World Health Report of 2019, it actually ranked as number 12 across all other countries, which is quite decent for Portugal.
So there's a couple of things here. So there's a state national health service, and that's you qualify for that if you're a resident. And with that, you have a number of local health centres that you can attend in your area, or there are public hospitals that you have access to also. Slightly different from in the UK, there's a co-payment system. It's not terribly expensive on average. I mean, it does depend, but on average, when we looked into it, it was €5 to maybe see a GP, and if you have a light medical issue, you may pay €15, for example, for a quick A&E consultation. So it's not hugely expensive. You also have private healthcare, and you have a range of healthcare providers. It's quite a extensive network of options through there. And what I would say is you definitely need to make sure that you have, if you're a resident, that you have your health number. It's known as an SNS health number, and that you will need for to apply for private health insurance. And also, if you require any medical attention, they will always ask for that.
With dental care, it's just like most other countries. It's not included in the public healthcare, so that is just on the private. But we have found that to be reasonably priced compared to the UK. And regarding the private hospitals is not an alternative. It's more like an add-on to the public hospitals. So the private hospitals can't do everything. They heavily rely on public hospitals still. So private hospitals is more for speed if you can't wait for the public.
What we found here is that there's a great we feel very supported health-wise. There is a dedicated phone line and website for health related needs. If you've got any concerns or you need to find out, you need to be signposted in the right direction to get information. And we'll leave that linked in the description box below, so check that out.
And our experience with the SNS helpline have been very great. For example, when we just arrived here, our youngest son was sent home because one in his class, his family had COVID, so he needed to have a COVID test through the public system, which was very smooth. And they called up on us twice to make sure that he didn't have fever or any symptoms, and was following up on us very efficiently. Even it was a hectic period for them, no doubt, with all these COVID pressures. So definitely full recommendation on them so far.
Definitely. And final point on that, the English was amazing.
Yeah.
Really impressive. So I wouldn't have too much of a concern about communication barriers either.
No, not on that side.
So next on our list is that Portugal is a great place to raise a young family.
What we found to be very surprising here is you often see in other countries that for example, teenagers can be a bit wild and a bit unimpressive at times, to say it nicely. But what we see here is that teenagers here seems a bit more well-rounded. They're very respectful, even holding doors if they don't have to. They're very welcoming still, and it's just nice to see a bit more harmony with teenagers for once. Also, just when you're walking across cities, they are more grown up, if you would say so. They're more just generally respectful to each other as well.
Leads us on to the culture. Culture is a really big thing for us. We really feel truly connected to the Portuguese culture. Just to sort of give you some specifics with regards to the fact that Portugal has a natural love of family and are very family oriented, and kids are welcome everywhere. And we get the true sense that children are allowed to be children.
Yeah, they allow rooms for kids to grow up at different speeds, and there's not too many expectations on kids way too early on. They're more allowed to be themselves and to be a bit wild if they have to.
Yeah, and coming from somewhere like London, I mean, if you took your young children into a restaurant, then you can expect to get the side eye, with people looking at you like, why are your kids here? But here, just love the fact that, it's so easy. You can take your children to a restaurant and people are not going to be looking at you like you're, what are these children? Why are they here? They're very welcoming. They embrace your children. They try to make them feel comfortable and welcome. And in a lot of times, they get treated better than us.
and a good example on that is when we first arrived here in our tourist clothes. We went to the finest restaurant that's in the area, and everybody was sitting in their finest suit, and we were coming there with our two very loud kids, and the waiters are dancing around to entertain them and really enjoying their company. It's just a genuinely very warm feeling, and everybody is just happy to see happy kids.
Yeah, that's it. So what's next on the list?
The next one is that we will talk a bit about cost of living. So what we're doing here is that we compare London with Lisbon. What we are finding generally, and that's across things like rent, car, food, restaurants, and so on, is that we find that the majority of the things, some things that are more or less the same, but the majority of the things are half price of what we would find in London.
In London, it became almost prohibitively expensive, earning quite well in London, and we were finding that you can literally check your bank account at the end of the month and wonder where on earth all your money has gone. And simple things like going out for the weekend, like we had a local pizza restaurant that we liked going to on Fridays, and I mean it was nothing special. It was a chain of pizza restaurants, and we could easily, for a couple of pizzas and a couple of kids meals, what would we spend? We'd spend
110,
yeah,
120 pounds.
which is, what's that in euros?
Around 140 euros.
Yeah, and compare that to meals we've had here.
Yeah, if we take the most exclusive restaurant we have in our neighborhood that we like to go to, the equivalent, including drinks and cocktails and stuff like that, is like 65 euros.
Yeah, so I mean the price for eating out is is a lot more reasonable here, and the quality of food is, we found, also exceptional. We found that sometimes in London you can go to a restaurant and you can really taste that the food is not the most freshest and may have even been microwaved.
And what you find here is that they just have a true love and a true passion for fresh ingredients. I would say it really matters to them, and they take great pride in cooking. So even the chains here, they still have a lot of passion for actually making the meal and making the experience, which is a nice change. So when you look at things like apartment, cars, commuting around, utilities, internet and all those things, then it's just overall a much more affordable way of living, especially if you're able to still work remotely and have your job or your occupation from outside of Portugal. What that causes is that the average salary in Portugal is much lower than, for example, in the UK. So, and a good average salary in Portugal is typically between 1,000 and 1,500 euros per month.
The next important thing to make sure that we can deliver our work online is a great technical infrastructure, and that's certainly something we found here.
So what we found here, I'm a bit technical. So what we find here is that they have truly invested in having fiber optic internet here. So they have one of the highest spread of fiber optic internet in most neighborhoods. I think there are between 70 and 80% of it. To compare, I think it's like 10% in the UK. It's fiber optic internet all the way to your house, which means you have the fastest possible internet, and also you have really fast 4G signals even in remote areas. So what we found, for example, in the UK, if we went to remote areas, we could easily have problems using the phone and finding a 4G signal. That just doesn't seem to be the same in Portugal so far. They just seems to have invested much more in that network, and we are yet to find a blind spot.
Absolutely, and this is not just in Lisbon or the main cities. This is actually, you can find great coverage across the country, so it's very impressive.
I think that might be one of the reasons why we see Portugal being one of the new favorite areas for digital nomads, because it's so well taken care of that it's so developed in that sense. The reason for that is that the Portuguese government never supported to have the phone lines upgraded internet-wise, so they have historically had worse internet than the rest of Europe for a long time. And then when they had to roll out the fiber optic internet, then the Portuguese government came in and gave financial support in rolling that out, and that's why we're seeing that. I think Portugal is the one that has the highest coverage in EU, if it's not the highest, it's very close to. So they are always competing, but it's really well developed, and a very good range of different speeds depending on your needs.
Yeah, they've done a great job.
Well done, Portugal.
Our next reason is how welcoming Portugal is to foreigners.
What we found out is that essential things like learning the Portuguese language there's completely free options that's paid by the government, because they really invest in that. You need to be able to integrate. So upfront, you feel very welcomed.
It was very easy to get access to our local Portuguese lessons. I will leave the details below in the description box as to how you can go about seeking your local Portuguese lessons in your area.
Not just learning the language, but you also find a general cultural thing that they're just very open to new expats. What they have done, for example, is they have made a thing for anyone from outside the EU. If they are willing to invest into the country, they're able to get a visa called the golden visa,
Yep.
I believe. And furthermore, they have also done a tax advantage to anyone who haven't lived in Portugal for the past 5 years, which is called N8R. We're going to link to some of it.
It's the non-habitual residence status.
Yes, which essentially means that you pay a reduced tax for 10 years, which is 20% on any income that is made in Portugal. And in many cases, if you have dividends from companies overseas, or you can bring your income over, maybe it's either 0 or 20%. So it's a huge tax advantage there. You do need to consult professional advice from an accountant if you are pursuing this.
There are many more reasons why we decided to move to Portugal, but they are our top 7. I'm sure you agree with us. If you are thinking about coming to visit Portugal, or you're already here, put a note in the comments and tell us why you love it here, or why you would love to come and visit the country.
And if you have already moved here, please tell us your 7 reasons in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you get all our next content. And the button is there, by the way.
Bye.
Bye.
See you in the next one.
Hygge means...
So come and join us, subscribe to our channel, and we promise you won't be disappointed.
So, if you're ready to join our journey, don't forget to hit the subscribe button.
Yeah, do it. You know you want to.
Come on, now!